How often do we have something that we know, like we have a knowing in our soul that this is what we want to do, and yet we don't feel confident or brave enough to claim it and to trust ourselves. And so we seek outside counsel from everyone to tell us what to do. And when you realize that you're the only one who can make that decision for you, and you already know what you want. Like, this is what I would say to anyone who's listening, who feels like they're sitting on the fence or not taking action on something. Like, you already know what you want. How did you get past those limiting beliefs to actually make that decision on the beach to come work full time over here and to release the known, to release the corporate job? How did you work through those limiting beliefs? Welcome to Superhuman Selling. Today, we are talking about the power of decision and what happens when you take action in favor of your dreams. And I have a really fun episode for you today because I am bringing one of our leadership team in She Sells and Superhuman Selling, one of my dear, dear friends, Laura Grabavoy, to talk about a life changing decision that she recently made and how she's actively quantum leaping right now. And it's a pretty fun, powerful story. So you're going to really enjoy hearing from her. And what I will say with all of this is that we all know that quantum leaping takes courage. And maybe you're in a corporate job right now and you really feel called to go start your own business, but you're scared. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and you're feeling called to invest in yourself in a bigger way than ever before, or to bring on a new team member and invest in hiring team or make some sort of a bold move. And it takes belief, it takes faith, and it takes bold decision making to actually experience the results that you're saying you want to experience. And so, with that, I get to introduce to you today my guest, my dear friend, my integrator, my team member, Laura Grabavoy, to the podcast. Laura, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here and to have you talk about a couple different quantum leap journeys that you've had, but especially the most recent one. So, welcome. I'm so excited to have you.
Lisa, I'm so excited to be here to really just share with everybody that's listening. As we got on this call, my intention that I set with this is that, really to inspire others to really choose themselves in their life. And it's a decision. It's just a decision to choose themselves. And so I want to inspire, I want to encourage, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, you can't speak and not inspire or encourage others. So this is going to be really fun. And this is actually your second appearance on the show. And you came on, I think it was a couple years ago, and you shared about how you doubled your corporate income in 6 months in this work because you and I met, actually, funny enough, I think initially through the podcast. I believe you had heard me through the podcast and you came into the community and became a client. And so when you came on the show, you were talking about how you doubled your income in 6 months. And now you have this new quantum leap moment, which we're going to talk about today. And that'll be our primary focus. But let's start with a little bit of your background. So if someone's listening and they don't know you, let's start by sharing at a high level, like who you are, how you came into this work, and what your first quantum leap moment was within the material that we teach in the Shoe Cells and Superhuman Selling communities.
Yeah, it's been about 5 years. I was listening, actually what I was doing is it was during COVID. My background is 30 years in financial services, and half of it though, I was a manager for half of the time, but in the financial services space, and then I stepped into the space with ultra high net worth clients. And, I remember during COVID, I just wanted to connect with people, and I'm always about, like, multiple streams of income, and so I had this, marketing, company, which was Mary Kay, and I was like, "I wonder how I can get online more and market." And so, I found your podcast, and I was like, "Alright," and I started listening to it, and I thought it was sales, and it is. There's a lot of strategy, but oh my god, I was like, there was so much stuff that I learned, like the inner work that I learned through the program, and so really fun. I remember I was sitting on my couch, and it was again like a I was like, "I'm following this woman. I found you on Instagram. You were doing a live series around releasing resistance to what you want." And I was like, at the time, I'm looking at my coffee table and I got like a bottle of red wine, Cabernet. I got some M&Ms. I'm like, like I need to release some resistance here. Yeah. And then I was listening to you live on this call. I remember just sitting there and there had been a lot of things that were happening in my life. And, you know, I it's so interesting because I was thinking about while I was on the couch, you know, my mom and I, the absence of my mom in my life, and she was battling cancer, and then my daughter just left for the Marines, and she'd had some stuff around trauma that she was dealing with that it was fresh when she left, and then I think about my youngest son. He went off to college. And so he was 8 hours away, and then, I'm looking at my husband, and I'm like he's, like, sitting across from me, and, him and I, we'd kinda grown apart a little bit, and I remember sitting there, and you were so gracious where you opened it up for live coaching, and I don't know if you remember, you were talking about the emotional guidance scale, and, why that was so, like, impactful for me was because I was all into, everything like self-help and even the book that you were reading, and it was talking about the law of attraction, and I was like, well, the law of attraction was like, I just gotta change my thoughts. And so I'm like, how do I like, you shared something around the emotional guidance scale at the time. And I was like, oh my God, like that's what I'm missing here. I did not realize my emotions are, part of what attracts things in. And then I asked a question around that. You opened up the live coaching and I was like, Elise, how do I feel better I have when I feel so hurt by people? And that one question changed my life.
How? Tell us how. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you did something that was really cool. You walked me through an exercise and you said, "You can choose how you wanna feel." And I was like, "It can't be that simple, can it?" And, you asked me to think of something that made me happy, and I thought about my kids and how much love I had for them, and I was like, "Okay, well, I remember feeling like, again, like, a little bit of doubt, but I'm like, "I don't know," but yet I was like, "Can it be that easy?" And it can, it can. I've learned that it can over time, and then you said to stop looking outside of yourself and go within, and you knew nothing about me, you knew nothing about my story, and I just remember, like, right then and there, I knew in my soul there was something to that. And so the inner work is really where things changed for me and the transformation. I invested in your program. In our program now. Oh my goodness, it's ours. I was like, yes, I'm here on the team. And I invested in what's at the time seemed like a large amount of money for me. I never did it. And so I was like, all right, I got in the work, I did it. And then 6 months within the work, I doubled my six-figure corporate income. And it was so fun. It was so fun because, I was just talking to another on another podcast about this, but I for the first time, in my life really realized that I got to choose what I wanted. And when I made that decision to choose what I wanted, I literally had 3 jobs that I wanted show up. Um, and what the power in that was is that when I went through each job, I knew, like, the work that we do in the community, I was like, "How do I really feel about this in my body?" And I remember, like, I knew which one I wanted, and so that was the power in the work that I had done, and I got to pick the job that felt like lit me up, made me excited, and then I was like, "All right, the negotiation and doubling my income with that," and so that was amazing and fun.
And I wanna highlight something that you shared there before we talk about your most recent quantum leap, but I think you said this on a group call, on one of our group calls recently too, was telling people to start making decisions out of desire versus fear. And I heard you say you did that in that process of choosing the new job, doubling your income, letting that grow. And I think that, gosh, I no doubt I used to make a ton of decisions out of fear and what ifs and worst case scenario. And we're taught to, get ready for plan B and do all of that. And the power of this work and what you just shared too is when you learn how to decision make out of desire and what feels expansive and tuning into your body too of what feels most expansive. That's how I make decisions all the time now. It's not based on necessarily logic, it's intuition and then tuning into what feels expansive. Like that will always guide you on the right path. So, is there anything else you want to say to someone listening just on that piece about making decisions out of desire versus fear before we move on?
Yeah, what's so cool about this is, like, through my own work with this, the moment, there's been many moments in my life where I got to choose myself, through this transformation, through this work, and so, I as you know, and I'm working on a book called Choose You Anyway, which is I'm so excited that that is in process and coming. And so one of the things that I even shared with you on the call before we even started around my whole mindset around I want I want others to choose themselves. And so, one of the things that I get out of this is there's a little tagline that I love to share, and I'm gonna share it here. It's no matter the noise, even when it's hard, you're not here to fit into anybody else's box. You're here to trust who you are, and you get to choose you anyway. And so, like, this has been my guiding light. And it's like this all comes back to where you shared with me, stop looking outside of yourself, go within. And this is what it means to go within. And so even if it's hard, even if it might feel a little fearful. I was like, it's not a fear, it's a different fear. It's not even fear, it's like this excitement. Sometimes we can confuse fear with excitement with things, but it's like I get to when you tap inside and you trust yourself, and that's where you make that decision, like you said, and that's a powerful thing that I've learned within this community and the work that I do, and I love helping women around this, men and women, to be able to do this.
Yeah. It's so beautiful, and you weave that theme of choose you, into everything that we do, and I think when we are decision making from a place of expansion and desire versus fear, then things are always gonna go in the right direction, even though there will still be in those moments of decision, there will still probably be fear. There will be, "Oh my gosh, am I making the right choice?" Like, the human analytical brain flares up and tells you all the limiting beliefs about what you're stepping into and about what's possible. So I would love to let's fast forward with everyone to the most recent quantum leap decision that you made. It's actually less than 2 weeks ago at the time we're recording this, which is really fun because it feels like a lifetime and yet it also feels like yesterday. So I think that's how you know that you're in an energy where things are moving fast. So just a little bit of context. Laura, she started as a client, as you shared here, and then came on and started working in the team not too far after. And Laura has been just such a powerful force and an incredible gift to myself, to our community. So, you co-lead the consultant certification program with me. You lead a number of the calls within our community. You lead our corporate sales mastermind. And I've known, and I think you've known too, that you were going to be full time in this work and in this material. And with that being said, up until very recently, you were doing this while also holding on to a corporate job. And so I'm someone where like I'm never gonna push someone to come do something. That doesn't feel good to me. I don't want to have to push anyone to do anything in my life to be around me. I'm like, look, if you want to come, come, let's do it. And I've had a knowing for you that I had a feeling and a knowing that it was time to come full time, and yet there was this, a corporate job that you've been at for quite some time, and I think you've been in corporate pretty much forever leading up until that, and, you've been holding on to it, and so you made a really powerful decision last week when you were here after our live event, which we are coming off wrapping as we record this, our Superhuman Selling live event, and I would love if you share a little bit of what that decision was um, and then we'll talk about the how of making it, because I think in talking about how you navigated it, it's gonna help people with any decision they may currently be feeling like they wanna make, but may feel really afraid to make.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, 7/22/25. We were walking on the beach, and I remember just, and leading up to this point, right, I'd known that I was gonna release the corporate job, but that's what I did. I released my corporate job, the one that I doubled, my six-figure income, and I remember walking on the beach with you, and, I know this is what I know about myself, is that I knew I would feel in my body this choice again to choose me. And literally, we were walking along the beach talking, and I was just like, I felt like I was like throwing every limiting belief that I had at the ocean and like, take it away. And there was a point in time where we then started to turn back and walk back. And in that turn, I felt it click in my body. And I knew that I get to choose me no matter nobody else. I get to choose me first. And we walked and that we turned and I looked at you and I'm like, I'm gonna make the call today. And I chose myself. I made the call and I knew it in my body. Leading up to that was so interesting because do you remember I made a call to you uh after I got off the train from being downtown and corporate, and I knew, like, I really wanted to release the job, before even the beach walk, but I remember talking to you and then realizing that I was looking for somebody else to make the decision for me. I wanted you to make the decision, I wanted my husband, I wanted and then like, even, like, on the corporate side, I was like I remember, like, even going into this, I even told myself, "I'm going to make the decision. Nobody is going to make this decision for me." But, it was on that beach where I realized, I was like, "This is my decision. This is my decision." And it was so liberating and freeing.
And I think what you just said there is so important of how often do we have something that we know, like we have a knowing in our soul that this is what we wanna do, and yet we don't feel confident or brave enough to claim it and to trust ourselves, and so we seek outside counsel from everyone to tell us what to do. Our partner, a parent, a sibling, a child, like whatever your situation is. And when you realize that you're the only one who can make that decision for you, and you already know what you want. Like, this is what I would say to anyone who's listening, who feels like they're sitting on the fence or not taking action on something. Like, you already know what you want. And how do you know what you want? Pretend that you're gonna flip a coin and one option is on one side and the other option is on the other side. What side would you want it to land on? That's your truth. Like, whatever that is, that's your truth. It's usually gonna be the kinda scarier feeling one. It's usually gonna be the one that's more the unknown. It's usually gonna be the one that pushes the edges of your belief systems about what's possible for you or who you are. It's gonna push up on your limiting beliefs, but it's gonna be the right choice. And so for you, I know you had been wrestling with this for a while, and you had been it would been, like, really, really close, and you had the desire to do it for a while, but you've been in that process, right? And kinda like, "Oh, can I do it? I wanna do it." So how did you get past those limiting beliefs to actually make that decision on the beach to come work full time over here and to release the known, to release the corporate job? How did you work through those limiting beliefs?
Yeah, and I love this because, this is what we do in our programs too. I was in my analytical mind. I was thinking logically. I wanted to have a logical reason, and I was like, okay, I'm trying to in the financial space, right? It's like when I was in my logical mind, I'm like, okay, I just created this income for myself. I have long-term incentive that I'm releasing. I have a 401k. And so I was like, "Oh my god, I don't know how to release this. I don't know what to do with this." Um, and so what I know and the work that I do and I help others through is I got to tap into my heart, and we talked about what it was that I desired, and I knew I get the privilege of being in this community and watching many of the, men and women in our programs make courageous decisions in choosing themselves, and there had been recently some women who chose themselves and decided to take some really bold actions for themselves. And I was like, "Oh, wow, I get to do the same." Like, I remember sharing with you, I'm like, "How can I coach and train and teach in this work? And here I have this calling on my heart. How do I get to do this too?" And I remember like what we teach too is, and what I love is that we don't have to figure out the how. And this is the quantum leaping. I love the book You Squared. You introduced me to that. And it doesn't have to make logical reason. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. And what's so beautiful is I get to trust myself. I get to trust the universe, God. I know I have evidence in my life when I look back, and there have been things that have been changed for me, and, but doing this work and knowing this work and creating in my life, this choosing myself, I get to choose. And that's the decision that I got to make for myself, is choosing myself and knowing that I would be fully, fully supported. And I was thinking, and even thinking about this now, like when I look back, even when decisions were made for me in the past, maybe like a release of a job in the past, or maybe something happening financially, or something happening with my kids, or my marriage, or my life, right? Is that even when those things happened, it was for my good. It was actually the universe, God doing it for me. He's like, all right, you know what? You're not going to do it. I'm going to make this change for you. And, but my life has always been better with everything that I look back at. And I knew I have this faith, that knowing that, and trusting in myself, trusting in God, universe, source, whatever that is for anybody listening. It's for me, it's God. And I was like, I get to choose me, and I get to fully lean into the support of this and be so like anchored and excited about it.
And what you said about the support comes after and the how comes after is so true, and it's so key, and people think they can't make a decision even though they know deep down what they wanna do. They think they can't make a decision because they don't see the full how, they don't see everything yet. And so most people will make decisions based on circumstance versus decisions based on faith, trust, intuition, and love. And my experience has been, if you wanna keep getting more of what you've already got or shrink or even shrink, like, make decisions based on circumstance. But if you want to grow, if you want to experience an expansion, if you want to experience, the fullest that's out there for you, you have to make decisions based on faith and trust and love and your knowingness. That's a question I ask myself all the time, like, "What is my knowing? What is my knowing?" And
Mm,
it's not the knowing isn't loud, the knowing isn't screaming at you, it's not, usually, like, huge waves of emotion coming over you, although that can happen with gratitude and those positive emotions, but, fear is loud. Limiting
yeah.
beliefs are loud. Those will scream at you, those are loud, but they're not your truth. And so we have to learn, I think that's part of the power of this work and the neuroscience that we infuse into the programs, what we work with on our clients and what we live and embody. You have to know when to listen to your thoughts versus when to realize it's a limiting belief. It's a program that's running. I want to ask you about one other thing before we wrap, because this is you and I could talk for hours about this. I already know. I know we could. So we'll have more conversations about this on the show for sure. Um, but I wanna talk about afterwards. After you make that decision and kinda navigating the emotions that come with that and recalibrating your nervous system, and I was sharing with you before we hit record, I made a decision for my kids and my family this week, a pretty powerful decision, one rooted in faith and trust, one rooted in knowing, and I'll talk about it more on the show as we go. Um but it took faith and it took courage, and my knowing was and is it's the right move, and simultaneously, yesterday and today, I've been navigating a lot of emotions, like even grief, sorrow, some self-doubt popped in, and there's an emotional wave that can come after that decision, and I think a lot of times people think, "Oh, no, does that mean I made the wrong choice?" Or, like, can you and I were talking about this even earlier this week, like, once we make that choice and when we're in the quantum leap, a lot of times there may be a really high of like, "Oh, I'm here. I finally said yes to the thing I want," and then there can be a bit of a resettling of your nervous system, and there can be limiting beliefs that flare up afterwards. So, how does someone anchor into that decision, and how does someone navigate maybe some of the nervous system recalibration that gets to happen afterwards to really settle into, like, I am safe. It is okay for me to expand. It is okay for me to change things voluntarily when I want to. It is okay for me to make the more expansive choice. How would you advise someone to approach that?
It's all inner. It's the inner part of things and not, it's releasing the judgments, releasing the limiting beliefs. It's allowing yourself to not push them down. And so I love this work because my truth, we all have an inner truth, an inner knowing. And so we get to tap back into that. We get to connect with it. And so and not and it doesn't mean that you're not gonna have things that come up because it's a reconditioning, a reconditioning for our body. Our body is used to this comfort. It's used to, like, a certain way of doing things. And I even remember, even feeling like I was so comfortable in my corporate job, and I chose to release it not because I didn't love parts of it, but because I had a calling on my heart that was so loud, I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I had this desire to really step fully into the work that we do here in the community. And it was a spiritual assignment for me to step in. And so we get to tap into that. And then simultaneously, we're gonna have things that come up because our body is used to this comfort, and this is the identity work that we get to do, and we talk about this in our programs. So we look at this old identity, this old me. They come with these beliefs that are there that our body is like, "Wait a minute, what's going on? What are you doing?" And so this is where we can have these emotions come up. We can have these thoughts come up because of this old identity. And so this is the work we get to do. We get to build this new identity. And so how we do this is we continue to tap into our heart, the vision that's there, and it gets to continue to expand and grow. And so that's what life is about. I have to share this with you. After I made this decision, I had so much energy. I was like, I told you, I'm like, I have a spin class that starts at 5 a.m. And I'm like, I went and then I went to, I actually ended up going to a yoga class. And I love how I get fully supported by the universe, by God. After the class, she talked about the hermit crab. And so, yes, you're like, okay, the hermit crab, you think about, they outgrow their shell. And then there is this point in time where they're moving, they're vulnerable. They have like this exposed, they're exposed. And it's like they're then finding their new home, their new shell. And I think about like this story that was shared, why it was so impactful for me is I was like, you know what? I get to grow. I get to expand. And I knew like this calling, the spiritual assignment to come here was my new shell. And so and remembering like that you said this one other time, and you share this often, and it sticks in my heart is what am I trading my life for? What is life all about for me? And I'm like, I'm trading, my energy for something that felt like a cage to me. It felt like it was so like a cage. I felt trapped. I felt, and that was my sign that I got to move. I get to move and I get to grow. And so I was like, I'm 51 years old and I get to choose what I get to do with my life. And I knew it was time. And so I love the work we do because this isn't taught a lot of places, especially if you're in the corporate environment. It's logical, reasonable, like, and, even with sales, we talk about sales in the community. Like, it's so fun, like, how we get to call things in and create. So I could keep talking on all this for a while. I love this.
Well, and I wanna just we'll kinda wrap in this energy and this note because I think this is so powerful. I love the hermit crab analogy. That's so good. I used the lobster analogy on our calls of lobsters outgrowing the shell. I didn't know that about the hermit crab too, but it makes sense, and there can be this period afterwards when we've committed, we've put ourselves out there, we've sent the resignation letter, we've announced we're doing something on social media and we're like, "Oh no." Right? Now it's real. Now it's real. And that feeling of vulnerability, if you interpret it as, "Oh no, I'm at risk or I made the wrong choice," that's gonna take your brain down one path. But instead, if you say, "Oh my gosh, I'm now ready to step into my new, more expansive shell," like, what a powerful reframe, and that's actually what's true. That's actually what's going on. So I love, the field of biomimicry, right? How we can look at nature to see how to build our lives and how nature operates, and when we can learn to work in accordance with that and model in our businesses and our lives off of that, it's really powerful. So, I just love you. I know you and I could talk about this forever and ever. I know we're about time, but I'll ask you in a minute, to share your social and where people can connect, but just any final words of wisdom for someone who feels like they're on the brink of the leap, and they're feeling they wanna do it, but they're still feeling some fear, they're still feeling some doubt, they're still feeling some hesitation. What would you say?
Yeah, first of all, I would say surround yourself with the people that are going for more in their lives.
Mm,
And I love this. You share this often, and even on that Instagram story, you shared with me, who are you taking advice from? Who
mm.
are you listening to? And I encourage anybody listening, like, look at the person that you're getting advice from. Do they have the things that you want in your life? Are they making the decisions that inspire change? And so, that is so true. That is so true. And I for the past 5 years in this work, I know that to be true. And as I shared with you earlier too, like seeing other women doubling their income, tripling, making their monthly income, their annual into their monthly and making decisions. It's like this gets to be fun when you surround yourself with a community, with people that are doing the things that you get to do too. They're just mirroring back the things that you want. And I will share again, I want to reiterate this: no matter the noise, even when it's hard, you're not here to fit in. You're here to trust who you are. So choose you anyway.
This has been like, music and therapy for my soul today too. I love this. There's so much power in this. Laura, a lot of our listeners may know you if they're in the community or in our programs, but if someone isn't connected with you yet, will you please share where people can connect, how they can just connect further with you, hear more about you and your beautiful work here?
Yes, yeah, I'm on all social platforms. It's just my name, Laura Grabavoy. And so Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. And then if I would love for anybody to follow my journey around Choose You Anyway. So I'm excited about sharing more of my transformation through the work that we do in this program, and the book and all that.
I love it so much. I love it. You live and breathe and embody this material. And yeah, I would say for everyone, connect with Laura. She also offers a free call. So you're more than welcome to reach out and say, hey, can we schedule a call, a time to chat about my goals and my vision? And she's amazing at helping guide people to their next steps and expansion. And so with that, thank you for being here. Thank you for embodying this work. I just love and adore you. And to you, my listener, thank you for listening to this episode. And as we close out, I will remind you to trust yourself on your path to success. Remember that your desires are green lights leading you and everyone around you to a brighter future. I'll see you on our next episode.